Hello, my friend. Welcome back. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Wherever you are in the world right now, maybe sitting at a desk, maybe lying on your bed, maybe walking slowly with your phone in your hand, I want you to feel that this moment is gentle. There is no rush. There is nothing you need to prove. You don't need to understand every word perfectly. Just stay with the feeling of the language and let it move through you. Today, I want to talk about something very human, something quiet but powerful, something many of us feel but rarely say out loud. Why do I keep comparing myself to others? Maybe you've asked yourself this question before. Maybe it comes to you late at night. Maybe it appears when you open social media. Maybe it shows up when you are learning English and you hear someone speak more fluently than you. You look at them and suddenly, your own progress feels small. Your voice feels weak. Your journey feels slow. If you've ever felt that way, you are not alone. And today, we are going to walk through this feeling together slowly, honestly, and kindly, using English not as a test, but as a mirror. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I was sitting in a small cafe on a quiet street. It was early in the morning, the kind of morning that feels soft. The air was cool. The cafe was almost empty. There was only one other person there, sitting near the window with a laptop open. I ordered my coffee and sat down with a notebook. I wasn't planning to do anything important. I just wanted to think. I just wanted to write a few thoughts. But my eyes kept moving back to that person by the window. They were typing fast. Their posture was confident. They looked focused, professional, successful. And suddenly, without asking permission, a voice appeared in my mind. "Look at them," the voice said. "They are working harder than you. They are more productive. They probably know exactly where they are going in life." I hadn't spoken to this person. I didn't know their story. I didn't know if they were happy or stressed or lost. But still, I compared. I looked at my notebook. Blank pages, slow thoughts, no clear plan. And in that quiet cafe, with warm coffee in my hands, I felt small. Have you ever felt something like that? Maybe you were at work, watching a colleague speak confidently in English during a meeting. Maybe you were in a classroom, listening to another student answer perfectly. Maybe you were online, scrolling through videos of people who seem more successful, more fluent, more confident than you. And maybe in that moment, you thought, why am I not like them? Why am I so slow? Why does everyone seem ahead of me? Let's stay with this feeling for a moment, not to judge it, not to fight it, just to notice it. In English, we often say, I compare myself to others. Repeat after me. Slowly, I compare myself to others. Again, a little softer, I compare myself to others. This sentence is simple, but it carries a lot of emotion. When we say compare, we mean we are measuring. We are placing ourselves next to someone else and asking, who is better? Who is faster? Who is more successful? And often, when we compare, we don't compare fairly. We compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight. We compare our doubts with someone else's confidence. We compare our beginning with someone else's middle or even their ending. Let me continue the story. As I sat there in the cafe, feeling smaller and smaller, something interesting happened. The person by the window suddenly closed their laptop. They leaned back in their chair. They rubbed their face with both hands. They looked tired, not successful, not confident, just tired. And in that moment, my story about them collapsed. I realized how quickly my mind had created a complete narrative based on almost nothing. A posture, a laptop, a quiet room, and I started to wonder, how often do I do this in my life? How often do I compare myself to a version of someone that exists only in my imagination? Maybe you can relate to this. You hear someone speak English fluently, and you think, they are confident, they are smart, they are not afraid, but you don't hear their inner voice. You don't see their fear before speaking. You don't know how many years they practiced, how many mistakes they made, how many times they wanted to give up. In English, there is a gentle phrase I like. It's easy to forget. Repeat after me. It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that everyone is carrying something. It's easy to forget that growth is invisible while it's happening. It's easy to forget that learning a language is not a race. Sometimes I think comparison is not really about other people. It's about fear. Fear that we are not enough. Fear that we are too late. Fear that we are wasting time. Maybe you've felt this too. You start learning English, full of hope. Then one day, you meet someone who started later than you, but now speaks better. And suddenly, your motivation changes. You're not learning anymore. You're competing, and competition is heavy. It makes the language tight in your chest. It makes your voice shake. It makes every mistake feel dangerous. But English was never meant to feel like that. Let me share another small scene. I was once teaching a student who rarely spoke in class. When I asked questions, she smiled politely and stayed quiet. Her notebook was full of notes, but her voice stayed hidden. One day, after class, she stayed behind. She looked nervous. She said, very slowly, I know the answers, but when I hear others speak, I feel stupid. She didn't say bad at English. She said stupid. That word stayed with me because comparison doesn't just affect our language skills. It affects our identity. When we compare too much, we stop seeing ourselves as learners. We start seeing ourselves as failures. And that is not true. Let's look at a useful expression together. I feel behind. Repeat after me, I feel behind. This is a very common feeling for English learners. But notice something important. Behind suggests there is a single line, one direction, one correct speed. But language learning does not work like that. It's more like a landscape. Some people move fast in speaking. Some people move deeply in listening. Some people grow quietly, internally, before they speak. If you feel behind, it does not mean you are failing. It means you are aware, and awareness is the beginning of growth. Let me speak honestly for a moment. Even as a teacher, even as someone who uses English every day, I still compare myself sometimes. I compare my voice to other voices, my work to other teachers, my pace to other people's success. And when I notice that happening, I try to ask myself a gentle question. What am I really afraid of right now? Often, the answer is simple. I'm afraid of being invisible. I'm afraid of not mattering. I'm afraid that my effort is not enough. Maybe you've felt this too. You practice English every day. You listen, you repeat, you try. But the progress feels slow. And then you see someone else, and suddenly, your effort feels meaningless. In English, there is a phrase I want you to feel. Not just understand. I'm doing my best. Repeat after me, I'm doing my best. Say it again, but this time, believe it a little more. I'm doing my best. Your best does not need to look like anyone else's best. Your journey does not need to match anyone else's timeline. Comparison often comes from forgetting why we started. Why did you start learning English? Maybe it was for work. Maybe it was for travel. Maybe it was to understand movies, books, or music. Maybe it was simply curiosity. When you compare yourself too much, you stop listening to your original reason. You start learning for approval, for numbers, for validation, and that is exhausting. Let me guide you through a small reflection. Think about your English journey, not where you want to be, not where others are, but where you started. Maybe you couldn't understand anything before. Maybe you were afraid to speak at all. Maybe English felt like noise, and now you are here, listening, understanding, reflecting. That matters. In English, we say, "I've come a long way." Repeat after me, "I've come a long way." This sentence is powerful because it looks backward with kindness. Even if you are not where you want to be, you are not where you were. Comparison tells you to look sideways. Growth asks you to look inward. Sometimes I imagine comparison as a thief. A quiet one. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It says, "Look at them." It says, "You're not enough yet." It says, "Maybe you should stop," but you don't have to listen to every voice in your mind. You can choose which voices you trust. Let me tell you one last story. I once met an older man who was learning English in his 60s. He spoke slowly. His pronunciation was imperfect, but his eyes were bright. I asked him why he was learning English. He said, "Because when I learn something new, I feel alive." He didn't compare himself to younger students. He didn't care about speed. He cared about meaning. That stayed with me. Learning English is not just about sounding better. It's about feeling more connected to ideas, to people, to yourself. When you compare yourself, you disconnect. When you stay present, you grow. Let's practice one final sentence together. I'm learning at my own pace. Repeat after me, "I'm learning at my own pace." Again, slowly, "I'm learning at my own pace." Let this sentence sit with you. You don't need to be faster. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay. Stay curious. Stay kind to yourself. Stay open. Sometimes the most powerful progress is quiet. And if today all you did was listen, that is enough. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are becoming. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And before we part today, I want to stay with you just a little longer, because this feeling of comparison does not disappear quickly. It comes back in waves. Even when we understand it, even when we see it clearly, it still returns quietly, politely, almost like it belongs. Sometimes it comes when you are tired. Sometimes when you are scrolling without thinking. Sometimes when you are doing your best, and that is the hardest moment of all. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine you are walking on a long road. Not a straight road, but a wide one. On this road, many people are walking too. Some are walking fast. Some are walking slowly. Some stop often. Some change direction. Some walk alone. Some walk with others for a while, then separate. Now imagine that you stop walking. You look around. You look at everyone else. When you stop like this, what happens? You feel left behind. You feel lost. You feel confused. But the problem was not your speed. The problem was that you stopped walking your own road. Comparison often begins when we pause our own movement to watch others. In English, there is a quiet but important phrase, "I lost my focus." Repeat after me, "I lost my focus." Not because you are weak, not because you are lazy, but because your attention moved away from yourself. Let me speak to you honestly, as a teacher, but also as a human being. There were periods in my life when I stopped enjoying language. I was still teaching, still speaking, still working. But inside, something felt heavy. I realized later that I was no longer listening to learners. I was listening to numbers, to views, to comparisons. I wasn't asking, is this meaningful? I was asking, is this better than others? And slowly, the joy left. That is the danger of comparison. It does not attack loudly. It drains quietly. Maybe this has happened to you with English. At the beginning, you felt curious. You felt open. You enjoyed small discoveries. Then, over time, you started to measure everything. How many words do I know? How fluent am I? Why can't I speak like them? And suddenly, English feels like pressure instead of possibility. Let's take a breath together, not physically, but mentally. In English, we say, I need to remind myself. Repeat after me, I need to remind myself. Remind myself why I started. Remind myself that progress is not always visible. Remind myself that learning is not a performance. Sometimes, I think we compare because we don't know how to sit with uncertainty. Learning a language puts us in a vulnerable position. We sound younger than we are. We sound less intelligent than we feel. We cannot fully express who we are, and that gap between who you are inside and how you sound outside can be painful. When you hear someone else speak fluently, that pain becomes sharper. But listen carefully. Their fluency does not take anything away from you. Their success does not reduce your potential. Their speed does not cancel your depth. In English, there is a sentence I want you to keep close to you. There is room for me. Repeat after me, there is room for me. Room to learn. Room to grow. Room to speak imperfectly. Room to exist without comparison. You do not need to earn your place by being better than someone else. Your place already exists. Let me share a small exercise, not an activity. Not a lesson, just a gentle moment. Think of one thing you can do in English today that you could not do before. Maybe you can understand this podcast. Maybe you can recognize phrases. Maybe you can feel the emotion, even if you don't understand every word. That is growth. We often ignore these quiet victories because they don't look impressive. They don't look fast. They don't look like success on the outside, but inside, they are real. Comparison teaches us to value only visible progress. Language learning is mostly invisible. It grows in your listening, in your thinking, in the way English slowly becomes familiar. Sometimes learners tell me, I don't feel improvement. And I ask them, do you feel more comfortable? Comfort is progress. Awareness is progress. Staying is progress. Let's say another sentence together. I'm allowed to be where I am. Repeat after me. I'm allowed to be where I am. This sentence is not lazy. It is compassionate. It does not mean you stop learning. It means you stop hurting yourself while learning. If comparison is a habit for you and for many people, it is don't try to destroy it. Habits grow stronger when we fight them. Instead, notice it. Oh, I'm comparing again. That's interesting. Something inside me is feeling unsafe. Then return gently to yourself. Return to your voice. Return to your reason. Return to this moment. English is not just a tool for work or study. It is a space where you meet yourself again and again. When you speak, you are not just forming sentences. You are practicing courage. When you listen, you are not just understanding words. You are practicing patience. And when you stop comparing, even for a moment, you are practicing trust. Trust that your path makes sense, even if it is slow. Trust that your effort matters, even if no one sees it. Trust that you are not late to your own life. If you remember nothing else from today, Remember this: you are not learning English to become someone else. You are learning English to express who you already are, and that takes time. It takes kindness. It takes staying. Thank you for staying with me today. Thank you for listening not just to English, but to yourself. And even after those words, even after a gentle ending, I want you to know something important. Growth does not stop when the episode ends. The questions stay with us. The feelings return. Comparison may come back tomorrow, or even later today. That does not mean you failed to understand. It means you are human. Sometimes comparison shows up when you least expect it. You open a book in English and feel excited. Then suddenly you notice how many pages you don't understand yet. You start speaking Sri, and halfway through a sentence, you remember someone who speaks more smoothly. The joy slips away. Quietly, when that happens, I want you to remember this moment. Not my voice. Not these exact words, but the feeling of slowing down. In English, there is a phrase that sounds simple, but it can change how you learn. I'm still learning. Repeat after me, I'm still learning. This sentence does two things at once. It accepts where you are, and it allows the future to remain open. You are not finished. You are not fixed. You are in motion. Comparison often pretends that everyone else is finished, that they have arrived somewhere final, but no one has. Even the people you compare yourself to are still learning something. A language, a skill, themselves. I want to share a quiet truth with you. The people who grow the most are not always the fastest. They are the ones who stay gentle with themselves long enough to continue. Harsh voices burn out, kind voices endure. When you speak to yourself in English or in any language, listen to the tone you use inside. Is it patient or is it sharp? Try this sentence now. Slowly. It's okay to take my time. Repeat after me. It's okay to take my time. Time is not your enemy. It is your companion. Every word you understand today once felt impossible. Every sentence you speak tomorrow is being prepared quietly now. You don't need to push harder. You need to listen deeper. If comparison has taught you to look outward, let learning teach you to return inward. Return to curiosity. Return to meaning. Return to the simple pleasure of understanding one more sentence than yesterday. And when you notice someone ahead of you, don't ask, why not me? Ask, what can I learn from my own pace today? That question is lighter. It opens space instead of closing it. Wherever you are listening from, I want you to feel this clearly. You belong in this language, not because you are perfect, but because you are present. Stay present. Thank you for being here until the very end. That alone says something important about you. You stayed. You listened. You allowed yourself to slow down. And that is already a form of growth. When this episode ends, life will continue. The noise will return. Other voices will appear. And comparison may try to speak again. If it does, don't be angry with yourself. Just notice it. Breathe, and come back to your own path. You are not late. You are not behind. You are learning in the only way that truly lasts, with awareness and patience. Carry that with you. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.